So you and I actually were texting about this before the show today. My opinion is that the Panthers, I think weeks ago, probably made the decision to try to move on from Bryce. At the very least, trade value has been restored, no?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're kind of having their hand forced by, one, like Dave Canales said after the game, when asked who would be the starter next week, said that, he doesn't have a decision to make. Bryce is making the decision for him. And right. I think that Bryce might be making the decision for the Panthers, assuming, of course, that the relationship, whatever relationships there are, whether it's Dan Morgan and Bryce, Dave Canalis and Bryce, David Tepper and Bryce, or even the triangulation of that relationship between the owner and the front office in terms of what they want to do at quarterback. I mean, if those relationships are repaired or can be repaired, and I think they can now that Bryce is playing well after being sat down, which, by the way, Will Levis playing pretty well after missing some time. So you just need a breather, right? I mean, I don't think you have a choice, but you have to keep Bryce. Like getting a second round pick for the guy you took number 1 overall, who you gave up another first round pick and DJ Moore and other stuff to go get when he's still on that rookie contract and still kind of proving himself. You just have to be keep playing him. You're going to have a high draft pick. Put some stuff around him. Go get a good wide receiver. I don't know that we're going to be able to get like Travis Hunter, but I mean, who knows?
Well, they'll probably trade up the way they do things, but
right, exactly. And look, I'm not saying the Panthers are going to do the right thing here, and I don't think it's an easy opportunity to do the right thing because we're talking about a very small sample size of Bryce playing well. But I mean, he looked really good yesterday.
Yes,
he played good football. There's some drops. He made some great touch throws. And I think, as far as the eye test goes, just sort of like the generic eye test, he looks so much more comfortable, Adam, than he did the entirety of his career before this. Look, I've bashed Dave Canales plenty. He's so handsome. Blah, blah, blah.
He is very handsome. Alarmingly so. Yeah.
Alarmingly handsome. You get away with a lot in life when you're that good looking. But I do think he's done a lot of, like considering all the injuries they've had, considering who Bryce is throwing to, considering that the defense now played pretty good yesterday, and it really shouldn't be playing that well. Like it's been defense has been, I don't want to call it swarming, but it's been like kind of flying around the last couple of weeks.
Jadeveon Clowney matters, doesn't he?
Yeah, man,
I think he's played well.
Yeah, but in general, I just think that at this point, prudence is the best practice with Bryce Young. Let him play out the season. See how he plays. You have him under your rookie contract. You don't have to trade him.
Right.
He might be the quarterback of the future.
Right.
And we've seen plenty of cases like this where things went askew early on and then were repaired. You don't have to rush out and pay him after next year or anything like that. I just think, let it breathe, build around him. And if you're a Panthers fan, the last 4 weeks have been, compared to whatever the hell the last year and a half were, you feel like you're winning, and you are winning. Like you almost strung together 3 straight wins, 4 if you count the bye.
That's no, they did win the bye. To me, it's how do you feel Monday morning? And the Panthers fans had 3 happy Monday mornings. And honestly, I know you lost the game, but this feels like a happy Monday morning if I was a Panthers fan.
I mean, you're basically on the road against the Chiefs. There were way more Chiefs fans than there were Panthers fans. And I told you, I said that was going to be the case. There's no doubt about it. But I think that, I just think if you're Carolina, the luxury of the rookie contracts allow you time to make a decision. Right. They rush everything. They get themselves down the path, they get down one path and they try to turn too quickly. It's just take a moment and breathe. Let Bryce play. If he plays well the rest of this year, you feel like you actually, because if you have a quarterback, you have something. That's right. The bottom line. And you invested too much in him to give up after just 18 games.
Will Brinson, senior NFL writer, CBSSports.com. He sorts the Sunday pile. That's where I was until the way the benching happened. And the way Dave Canalis refused to address why the benching happened and the future of, he could have said, look, Bryce is still the future. Right now, we're just going to go to Andy because it hasn't looked right, and we need to think about, winning games and keeping morale. He could have explained himself so much better. And most of my criticisms of Dave Canalis has centered around him seeming unprepared for obvious questions that he is going to be asked. He has just been like, I don't know really what to say here, but maybe it's just this is all new to him too. He is a first-time head coach. All right, so it has certainly looked good, and maybe he is the coach, the quarterback of the future. And as you said, next year you get the free year. You have the opportunity to say, you're the guy.
You got 3 free years if you want. I mean, like,
you could, but really, you're going to make your decision on next year. If he, like, it almost doesn't matter. Like, it does, but it doesn't. Wins and losses. If you go out next year and you go, 7-10, but you go, that's a good quarterback. There are going to be good quarterbacks on 7-win teams this year. Heck, the Rams might end up 7-10.
Look at the Bengals. I mean,
100%.
Joe Burrow has like 18 touchdowns and 2 picks in the Bengals' 7 losses or whatever it is.
So if you get next year from Bryce, all right. Let me just move on. And by the way,
now I'm the one who wants to talk about the Panthers now, right?
No.
No, I'm kidding.
We'll talk about them all day, but I want to get to a couple of other teams. So on a downside, because I know there are a lot of Commandos fans here. Did the Russell Wilson to Mike Williams touchdown at the end of the Washington-Pittsburgh game, which Washington had every right to win, did that, even though they had every right to lose the game in Chicago, did that ultimately unravel their season? Because I cannot believe they turned Dallas into a competent football team.
Yeah, I mean, talk about it just like hate week. I'm wearing the wrong hat for hate week, right? Although it might be ambivalence week around here. The shout out to the Dallas Country Club, the lovely place to play golf. It really
in North Carolina, or did you go to Texas?
No, I was in Texas.
Okay.
They lost 3 straight. And the offense finished with 412 yards yesterday, but it was largely all late. Including that Hail Mary. Yeah, exactly.
Could you imagine if you had the under, by the way, yesterday?
Brutal
in that game?
It was almost as bad as if you had the Raiders plus 5.5 or whatever it was. And then
it was 10-9. It was 10-9 start of the fourth quarter.
Here's the thing I would look at more than anything when talking about the Commanders is that Cliff Kingsbury has sun run, so to speak, just run really hot early on in seasons in his time as a head coach with the Arizona Cardinals, and then just collapsed down the stretch. And it looks like that might be happening. Now, they did play the Steelers and Eagles, who are 2 good defenses. Philly playing awesome football right now. Steelers, great defense. They had an easy schedule early on. They stacked their wins. The Cowboys thing is pretty hard to explain other than Dallas just got up for that game. And it's the NFL. These guys have, are playing for their jobs. It's a business, blah, blah, blah. It's the National Football League. But, I mean, you can see a pretty clear demarcation of basically halfway through the season, 9 weeks, the Commanders' offense running really well, and then all of a sudden falls off a cliff. And I, no pun intended, and I do wonder if that's something we see and what kind of adjustments they'll make. Tennessee's a pretty good defense too.
Yeah.
Their offense playing well, so that's a tough matchup in week 13 before that weird late bye. And they got the Eagles again, the Cowboys on the road to close out, the Falcons, who are going to be desperate, and then at the Saints. I mean, it's just not an easy schedule to close out. So this team is going to be in a dogfight for one of those wild card spots. What's interesting, too, is that I would not be surprised at all if Jaden Daniels if this is the trend and this Cliff Kingsbury offense is going to crater in the second half, if Jaden Daniels gets walked down for Offensive Rookie of the Year by Bo freaking Nix out in Denver. The odds say that Jaden Daniels is not a huge favorite. Bo Nix playing really good football in the Broncos right there in the playoff discussion. But yeah, I mean, I think
they're in the playoffs right now, and it's hard to believe that they won't make it.
They got a really hard schedule to close out.
Yeah, but they've also got a big cushion on the teams behind them.
Sure, AFC is very weak. But I think the Cliff Kingsbury second half offensive collapse thing is something to watch here for the Commanders over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, no question. It's like quarterback, offensive coordinators that script the first 15 plays of a game, and then when the script is written, when we're done, what do we do next? That's sort of like a bigger picture view of Cliff Kingsbury. Look, I mean, you could just Google the records of the teams he either was the head coach for or the offensive coordinator for, at the second half of the year looks nothing like the first half of the year. It happened in Arizona. It happened at Texas Tech. Granted, schedules get more difficult in college in the second half of the year. You're through all your cupcake non-conference schedule. Will Brinson, senior NFL writer, CBS Sports.com. Is Miami a playoff team?
I'm actually I'll throw a little bone out there for the what sports book do you guys use?
FanDuel,
perfect.
I mean, we use all of them here, but I personally, I swear by FanDuel.
Chop Robinson,
right?
Top pass rush win rate, which is oddly hard to say.
Very.
Over in the entire NFL over each of the last 2 weeks, 22-1 on FanDuel to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Jared Verse, the favorite. I would not be surprised at all if Chop Robinson came on gangbusters down the stretch. Really good pass rusher out of Penn State. And when you look at the Dolphins' schedule,
great name too. Wow.
I know. God, thanks, Anna Bob. Why couldn't you name me Chop Brinson? I'd be doing something athletic.
You'd be a pass rusher. You'd be an edge rusher.
Right. They get the Packers, the Jets, the Texans, Niners. Yep. We don't know what Brock Purdy's going to be there. The Browns, and then the Jets again to close out the season. That's a really friendly schedule. Now, Packers are playing great football. That's on the road.
Yeah.
Texans not easy.
I don't know how friendly it is.
Well, I mean, just get the Jets twice, and the Jets are toast.
You get the Jets twice, but like I am in no way saying the Jets are going to beat the Dolphins. Don't read me wrong here. Right? Division rivalries are just different. See Pittsburgh, Cleveland, see New England.
Is it going to dump snow in Miami?
Maybe. The Jets and the Dolphins have had the most curious history. The bad team typically takes a game off the good team.
Well, there's buzz, too, that Aaron Rodgers may be benched or sat for the rest of the season, which would certainly be spicy.
They could release him. I read that they were thinking about releasing him. I think
the problem for Miami is like you've got to pick a team that's going to come back to earth, and it probably has to be the Broncos. I think the Chargers are legit. They're not going to just like collapse the way the Chargers do with Jim Harbaugh there.
Here's the thing. If Miami...
I was going to say, for Denver, their final 3 games, the Chargers, the Bengals, and the Chiefs, which is not... And the Colts right before that. So,
but they're
massive
at home,
game for the Broncos.
At home against Cleveland and Indianapolis in their next 2.
Sure.
So if you're Miami and you lose at Green Bay... You might be done.
Yep.
Unless Denver
outside shot. They're playing good though. Tua had a great game yesterday. Really should have. He threw for like 300 passing yards and like four touchdowns. Could have been more.
Right.
Except New England didn't offer anything. Like Skylar Thompson came in and fumbled, and then they put Tua back in the game. So like, I mean, certainly could have been a better performance. I think. You just have to be encouraged for Miami that this is starting to like turning things around mid-season in sort of similar fashion to the Panthers. I mean, obviously different expectations, but tough season with the injuries and all.
Yeah, it's not so much turning it around. It's like when you've got Tua, you're good, and when you don't have Tua, you're bad because you didn't have a backup. You didn't plan.
Maybe you could sign Daniel Jones.
Well, I mean, I've already had this. I think the Panthers should sign Daniel Jones simply to be a backup, not to do anything else. Like, you got to have an honest conversation with Daniel Jones and say, you could play in the NFL for the next 7 years as a backup quarterback. You could be that.
Yeah, I think the Raiders could make sense, too, just because Gardner Minshew out for the season with a broken collarbone.
Right, because
the Ravens
they
or the
probably
Bills.
look at him as a starter.
Yeah,
and that's dumb.
I mean, I saw Daniel Jeremiah tweet this, and I sort of thought the same thing, but if you're Daniel Jones, you can either go somewhere and start for a bad team. I don't think going somewhere and backing up for a bad team is the move necessarily if you're Daniel Jones.
I'm not even thinking about it this year. I'm thinking the rest of your career. You could be a backup quarterback.
I think he still thinks he could be a starter.
I'm sure he does. That would be an incorrect thought on the part of Daniel Jones. All right, final thing for Will Brinson. Give me a big 3 in each conference. 3 best teams in each conference.
AFC's easy. I think it's just the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Ravens.
Right.
And I challenge anybody to disagree with that. 3 best quarterbacks in football.
Correct.
NFC, Lions, obviously. I think you have to go to the Eagles at this point. I don't think Saquon Barkley. I think it's fine if we want to include Saquon Barkley in our annual 3/4 of the way through the season. There's a skill position guy with big numbers. let's pretend he's going to win MVP for a second
Right.
and have a hot take discussion about it before he inevitably doesn't get any votes, like any first place votes. We did. Derrick Henry ran for 2,000 yards in 2020. Led the league in rushing touchdowns, rushing attempts, and rushing yards per game too, obviously, and didn't get a single vote for MVP. He wasn't even the unanimous offensive player of the year. Like, stop with the Saquon MVP stuff. It's cool if you have a big, long ticket. I would cash it out if you have that option because he's just not going to win. Like Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, barring injury and total collapse, which they shouldn't do, are going to win. And Patrick Mahomes lurking and playing pretty good football. The Lions have options too. But I think Detroit, Philadelphia, and then I'm kind of leaning towards the Packers.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think Minnesota's a house of cards, but they are 9-2.
The NFC West is, definitely, whoever comes out of there can win a couple playoff games. It wouldn't surprise me.
We're going to have 2 division winners that are 9-8.
Possibly.
In
the
NFC
West, yeah, beating up on each other in the NFC West. Tampa Bay, by the way, their schedule.
Call it beating up on each other in the NFC.
Tampa Bay's schedule is really, really easy. Like I don't know what my computer just died, so I don't know what their odds are for the division, but I would take a look at that too.
Will Brinson, my man. Happy Thanksgiving, sir.
Happy Thanksgiving, buddy. See you, man.
All right, man. Will Brinson, senior NFL writer, CBS Sports.com. We always sort the Sunday pile with him on Monday.